Hey everyone, let's talk about Volkswagen. You might know it as the maker of the iconic Beetle or the modern Golf, but there's a lot more to its story. It's not just a car company. It's a story full of ups and downs, starting with a really dark time in history, the Nazi era in Germany. This period is crucial to understanding how Volkswagen came to be. Yeah, Volkswagen's beginnings are tied to that, and it's something we gotta talk about to understand the company. The Beetle, one of the most recognizable cars in the world, has its roots in this era. So picture this, it's 1933. The streets of Germany are filled with uncertainty and change. Germany's still hurting from losing World War I. The Treaty of Versailles has left the country in economic ruin, and the people are desperate for hope and stability. The economy's a mess, people are struggling, and this guy named Adolf Hitler, he's in charge now. He promises to restore Germany to its former glory. He's got big plans, wants to make Germany strong again. His vision includes massive infrastructure projects and a revival of national pride. One of his ideas? A car for everyone, a people's car. This concept wasn't just about transportation, it was about uniting the country under a common goal. He figured folks could drive on these new highways he wanted to build, making Germany feel more connected and modern. The Autobahn was a symbol of progress and efficiency. This car was a big deal for Hitler. He saw it as a way to showcase German engineering and ingenuity to the world. He thought it would make people feel proud to be German again. The car was more than just a vehicle. It was a tool for propaganda. It was part of his whole plan to bring Germany back from the brink. The Volkswagen Beetle was meant to be affordable, reliable, and a symbol of the new Germany. To make this dream a reality, a massive factory was built in Wolfsburg. This factory would become the heart of Volkswagen's production. Thousands of workers were employed to build the Beetle, and the factory became a symbol of hope for many Germans looking for stable employment. The Beetle was marketed as the car for the people, affordable and practical. It was designed to be easy to maintain and economical to run. After World War II, Volkswagen had to rebuild, just like the rest of Germany. The factory in Wolfsburg was in ruins, but the spirit of the Beetle lived on. Today, Volkswagen is one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. Its history is a testament to resilience and the ability to overcome even the darkest of beginnings. Okay, so this people's car wasn't just about getting around. Hitler used it to make himself look good, like he was keeping his promises to make Germany awesome again. He wanted everyone to see it as proof that things were looking up. Now, to actually build this car, Hitler needed a genius. Enter Ferdinand Porsche, a super talented engineer, though not without his critics. Hitler put Porsche in charge of making a car that was both cheap and reliable, something that could handle Germany's rough roads. The Nazis poured tons of money into this project. They saw it as super important for their plans. They wanted to show off how clever German engineering was. Fast forward to 1938. They built a giant factory in a brand new town called Wolfsburg just to make this car. This factory was a big deal, showing how serious they were about this whole Volkswagen thing. Now, Porsche's design for the Volkswagen was pretty radical. It was unlike anything people had seen before, and it certainly turned heads. The car was meant to be affordable, reliable, and efficient, but it also had to stand out in a market filled with mundane, boxy vehicles. It had this unique rounded shape, which was not just for aesthetics. The curves were designed to be aerodynamic, helping the car to move more smoothly through the air. This was a time when most cars were designed with sharp angles and flat surfaces, so the Beetle's design was a breath of fresh air. The engine was in the back, and it was air-cooled. This was a significant departure from the norm, as most cars had their engines in the front and used water cooling systems. The rear engine layout allowed for better weight distribution and improved traction, especially in the snow and on slippery roads. Totally different from the boxy, unreliable cars back then. Those cars were often plagued with mechanical issues and were not very fuel efficient. The Beetle, on the other hand, promised reliability and efficiency, which were highly sought-after qualities during that era. Porsche knew a thing or two about making cars cut through the air, and he used that here to make the car use less gas. He spent countless hours in wind tunnels, testing and refining the design to ensure it was as aerodynamic as possible. This attention to detail paid off, as the Beetle became known for its impressive fuel economy. Putting the engine in the back was weird, but it gave people more space inside. This was a clever design choice that maximized the interior space, making the car more comfortable for passengers. It also allowed for a larger trunk in the front, which was a novel idea at the time. And the air-cooled engine, simpler and cheaper to make, even if it wasn't as powerful. It was easier to maintain and less prone to overheating, which made it a practical choice for everyday drivers. This simplicity also contributed to the car's overall reliability. But not everyone loved the design. Some people were skeptical of its unconventional looks and doubted its performance. They were used to the traditional car designs and found it hard to accept something so different. Some people thought it was too out there, not classy enough for a German car. Germany was known for its luxury automobiles, and the Beetle's simple, utilitarian design didn't fit that image. Critics argued that it lacked the sophistication and elegance that German cars were famous for. Others weren't sure about the engine being in the back, said it would be a pain to fix. Mechanics were used to working on front-engine cars, and the rear-engine layout presented new challenges. They worried that repairs would be more complicated and costly. But the biggest controversy? People said Porsche stole the design. There were rumors and accusations flying around that he had copied the concept from other engineers. This controversy cast a shadow over the Beetle's success and raised questions about its originality. Some engineers claimed he ripped off their ideas, especially a guy named Bella Bereni, who had already drawn up plans for a car like this. Bereni was a respected engineer, and his claims added fuel to the fire. He argued that his designs predated Porsche's and that the Beetle was essentially a copy of his work. These accusations never really got proven, but they followed Porsche and Volkswagen for years. Despite the controversy, the Beetle went on to become one of the most iconic cars in history. Its unique design, practicality, and affordability won over millions of drivers around the world, cementing its place in automotive history. Alright, so 1939 arrives and World War II breaks out. The world is thrown into chaos and every industry, every company is affected in some way. Volkswagen, a company that had been founded just a few years earlier with the dream of creating affordable cars for the German people, finds itself at a crossroads. The vision of a people's car is suddenly overshadowed by the demands of a nation at war. Volkswagen's whole reason for existing gets thrown out the window. The factory that was supposed to be a beacon of innovation and progress is now repurposed for a very different mission. The dream of mass-producing affordable cars is put on hold indefinitely. That factory in Wolfsburg? Yeah, it's not making people's cars anymore. Instead, it's been converted to serve the war effort. The assembly lines that were meant to produce the iconic Beetle are now being used for something far more sinister. It's now churning out war machines for the Nazis. The factory's focus shifts entirely to supporting the German military. Instead of family cars, they're building things like the Kübelwagen, a jeep-like vehicle designed for rugged terrain, and the Schwimmwagen, an amphibious vehicle that could traverse both land and water. These vehicles were specifically designed to meet the needs of the German army, providing them with versatile and reliable transportation in various combat scenarios. The Schwimmwagen in particular was a marvel of engineering for its time. It could even float on water, making it incredibly useful for crossing rivers and other bodies of water during military operations. These tough vehicles were super useful for the German army. They were built to withstand harsh conditions and were a crucial part of the German military's strategy. As the war got worse, Volkswagen got more and more caught up in the Nazi system. The company's resources and workforce were increasingly directed towards the war effort, leaving little room for anything else. They started using forced labor, forcing prisoners of war and people from countries Germany had invaded to work in their factories. This wasn't just a few people, it was thousands. These individuals were taken from their homes and forced to work under brutal conditions. The people from the invaded countries were often treated as expendable resources. They were given little to no rights and were subjected to inhumane treatment. The factory floors that once symbolized progress and innovation now became places of immense suffering. To work in their factories, it was awful. Thousands of people, including innocent families, were treated terribly, forced to work in horrible conditions. The factory became a place of despair where hope was a distant memory. Forced to work in horrible conditions. The laborers were given minimal food, inadequate shelter, and were subjected to long hours of grueling work. Many fell ill, and some even lost their lives due to the harsh conditions. The Wolfsburg factory, once a symbol of hope, became a place of suffering. The very walls that were supposed to echo with the sounds of progress and innovation now resonated with the cries of those who were oppressed and mistreated, became a place of suffering. They even had a nursery there for babies born to these forced laborers. But the conditions were so bad that many babies died from hunger, sickness, or just not being cared for. The nursery, which should have been a place of care and nurturing, turned into a symbol of the cruelty and neglect that permeated the factory. The infants, born into a world of suffering, had little chance of survival. But the conditions were so bad that many babies died from hunger, sickness, or just not being cared for. The lack of proper medical care and nutrition led to a high mortality rate among these innocent children. That many babies died from hunger, sickness, or just not being cared for. The sight of malnourished and sick infants was a heartbreaking reminder of the human cost of the war and the cruelty inflicted by the Nazi regime, or just not being cared for. It was a heartbreaking situation that showed the dark side of Volkswagen's wartime story. The company's involvement in the war effort and the use of forced labor left a stain on its history that could never be erased. It was a heartbreaking situation that showed the dark side of Volkswagen's wartime story. The suffering endured by the forced laborers and their families was a stark contrast to the company's original mission of bringing affordable cars to the people. That showed the dark side of Volkswagen's wartime story. The legacy of this dark chapter in Volkswagen's history serves as a reminder of the impact of war on industries and the human lives caught in the crossfire. It is a story that must be remembered, not just as a part of Volkswagen's past, but as a lesson for future generations. It's 1945, the war is finally over, and Germany is in ruins. Cities are destroyed, the economy's a disaster, and the Allies are in control. Volkswagen, once a symbol of Nazi ambition, looked finished. The Wolfsburg factory, bombed during the war, was taken over by the British. At first, they thought about shutting it down and using the parts to pay for war damages. But then, a British officer named Major Ivan Hurst saw something special in the Volkswagen Beetle. He figured this small, fuel-efficient car could be just what Germany needed to get back on its feet. Hurst fought to keep the factory open, got the materials they needed, and even hired back many German workers. Thanks to Hurst, the Wolfsburg factory went from a reminder of war to a sign of hope. It's a pretty incredible turnaround story, right?